look, I mean, you go around the rest of the league, you talk about the AFC. Obviously, a huge win for the Denver Broncos. Let's start there, and seemingly a huge loss for the Green Bay Packers moving forward, Keegan, because it's believed that Micah Parsons tore his ACL in the third quarter of that game, which changes things significantly. Christian Watson also had to, leave that game with a chest injury and went to the hospital for further evaluation on that. So, look, on the AFC side of things, Denver has put themselves in the driver's seat. Bo Nix had himself a game. I know he's not always tops on your charts, but the kid had himself a game yesterday, Keegan.
Yeah, it was a tough week for me personally. Back to the Patriots game quickly. I talked with you and Alex Barth about how Dawson Knox stunk and he wasn't going to do anything. Yeah, he has a kid, and then 2 touchdowns later, egg on my face. And then I think I've been very vocal about the fact that I am not a believer in the Denver Broncos and that I picked the Green Bay Packers to win the Super Bowl before the year. And I can't say that I believe those two things as we sit here today. The Broncos are for real. They've proven that week in and week out. I think they've shown that they're a good football team. I might not like the individual pieces. I think the secondary is overrated. I think the defense as a whole is really strong up front. But once you move further back along, I think they can be beat. I think the quarterback isn't a top 15 quarterback, let alone a top 10 quarterback. So I don't have a ton of faith in him. But they keep winning football games against really good football teams. So who am I to poo-poo on their parade, I guess. And then with the Packers, without Micah Parsons, he transformed what that defense does. They're not going to be able to play the same style of defense now without him. Using him as essentially a chess piece to pick on individual matchups, that's no longer on the plate. So everybody else has to step up a little bit. They have a lot of flaws on that defense and injuries-wise, offensively. Your top 2 running backs miss time in the past few weeks. Your top 2 wide receivers are consistently in and out of the lineup. It's really hard. I think my view on both of those teams completely flipped on Sunday. Yeah.
I mean, look, Denver, as I said, they've put themselves in the driver's seat for the 1 seed, right? As long as they don't slip up, it is theirs for the taking. And they had that in front of them yesterday, right? If they win out, it's theirs. Nobody else can catch them. They already had the tiebreaker against the Patriots before yesterday transpired and went the way it did. The other, obviously, huge story, and several of them across the league. But the other huge story is that the Chargers go into Arrowhead. They get a win. So there is the possibility that they're playing Denver week 18 for the AFC West. But coming out of that game is Patrick Mahomes, who tore his ACL. Obviously, his season is over. And you talk about tearing an ACL, in mid-December. That puts the beginning of next season in jeopardy for him as well. I'm sure you saw it. It was, flying all around social media last night. Patrick Mahomes, it's his 9th season. Everybody likes to make the Mahomes-Brady comparison. Brady also tore his ACL in his 9th season. Both had won 3 Super Bowl titles. So, all of those little historical nuances that get thrown out there. But for the Kansas City Chiefs, look, I mean, you had a season that had already gone away in which I think they didn't anticipate, many didn't anticipate it would go for them. And then you add this to it, and all of a sudden you're taking a deep breath because, like I said, this can go into next season.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the biggest disaster possible for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think we saw that they weren't going to compete this season, obviously. They couldn't lose. It was do or die for, it would have been 3 months at that point if they would have stretched it all the way to the Super Bowl again. And that was never going to happen. I don't think very many people expected it to happen, but to have the injury on top of it and to have some of their, Chris Jones hobbled off the field and Travis Kelce looks done, I would say. He just isn't there as the same player that he always was, for a decade plus. So having all those things kind of come to a head in the same day where you're knocked out of the playoffs and you can clearly see that 2 teams have surpassed you in your own division, that's a really tough pill to swallow. I'm never going to be the guy that stands up here and is like, oh, I feel bad for the team that has won 3 Super Bowls and been to 4 or 5 in the past whatever years. Like, feeling bad isn't the word for it, but to have it end this way, at least this iteration of it end this way with Patrick Mahomes going on the shelf, that sucks. You never want to see that. Yeah. You want to see a guy kind of get knocked off the totem pole fair and square. You don't want to see him go down with an injury, and having it affect the next season and potentially beyond that, because his mobility is so important to his game, is really unfortunate.
Yeah, no, 100%. You never want to see it happen the way it did yesterday. You just don't want to see a guy get hurt. It's part of the game, obviously, but it's not part of the game that any of us choose to enjoy. And our best to Patrick Mahomes as he looks to recover and rehab and do all the things that's required after a major injury like the one that he sustained yesterday. Elsewhere, Jacksonville, like Trevor Lawrence and his 6 touchdowns yesterday, like that was an absolute beat down by the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's going to be a fun game to watch next weekend. And then you have Pittsburgh, who plays tonight, of course. And they got to win this one tonight, because the Baltimore Ravens went and took care of business yesterday against a Bengals team that is officially out of the playoffs at this point in time.
Yeah, I love that stupid division. It's so ridiculous. The fact that we're talking about the Ravens and Steelers still, and we will continue talking about them, because if the Steelers lose tonight, right, they're tied, and then it's the Patriots have to beat the Ravens, and then that'll put Pittsburgh back in first place. It's insane. I think we're going to be talking about it for the next 3 weeks pretty heavily, but the division as a whole is a pretty silly one to begin with. I'm not a huge believer in any of the teams. Whichever team comes out, I'm not a huge fan of, but it is interesting because you play Baltimore next week, and you played Pittsburgh earlier this season. Definitely a different team than they were earlier in the season, but we see that they both can win football games against pretty much anybody. Like the talent's there, and the fact that they are older, they're both on the older side. They've got a lot of veteran, like former superstars who are kind of in the latter stages of their career. They all have experience, and I think experience is one of the biggest things late in the season, where you have a team that is comfortable in the big moments and they don't shy away from them. It kind of gives them an extra boost. So those two teams are going to be difficult outs for whoever are playing them over the next 3 or 4 weeks. Specifically interesting for tonight, Monday night, and then Sunday night of next week, just seeing how the Patriots really stack up against both of them, because it's a little bit of a firestorm there in the AFC North.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we sat here a couple weeks ago and said, is it going to be 8-9 or 9-8 that wins this division? It very well could be, right? I mean, you're sitting here in Baltimore's 7-7, like they're 500, and Pittsburgh is 7-6. So going into tonight's game against the Miami Dolphins. So we'll see what it's all going to mean, for New England, obviously moving forward, but also for, just for the playoffs. And I think this is why I think it was the Lions who had put it on the table to not have it be based upon winning your division in terms of who hosts a home playoff game, but instead have it be based upon record. Because I think it was the NFC North a couple of years ago not the NFC North, the NFC South, excuse me, that wound up like hosting a game with a losing record or whatever, and goodness, we could see it again this year. So there's a reason that those are brought to the table to try to make those changes. And we'll see if it happens again, if all of a sudden something like that gets enough votes to make a change.